let's move on to your region, the epic region. Run us through your nominees.
All right. So we'll start off um, with probably the most unique of the epic ones here, but still very epic, and that's Johnny Greenwood's "There Will Be Blood." I almost went with Greenwood's work on Phantom Thread, which I think is just as
Mm-hmm.
equally fantastic.
So elegant.
And elegant, but then dark. But I also thought, like, man, I don't get that score, and I don't get his work on Power of the Dog or Spencer, um, without this,
Sure.
and or the Master even without this. And I think that this is
It's like
truly.
saying Radiohead shirt.
There you go, there you go.
Nice work. I was wondering what that was.
Truly,
I couldn't see it all.
um, revolutionary stuff, in my opinion. Um, I think that we talk about a score that builds tension. This is definitely one of those. I mean, from the opening shot, the way the movie opens up, you hear that the screechingness of the score open up, the
Mm-hmm.
the playfulness, the strings, the dun, 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 you know what I mean? Dun, 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 and it's epicness there. But then, when the well blows up, which I think is an extraordinary scene, but the what is it? Is it a I don't know what he's using there, but that clicking sound though. I mean,
Oh
like
yeah, I'm not sure
man,
what percussion instrument he's using there. It could be
he's
like
some
it could be.
Call it a wood block.
wood block or
There's a wood
something
block
there.
there. There's a tambourine in there somewhere too.
Yeah,
I
and
think.
it just will get your heart racing more than a marathon. I mean, it's incredible.
Wasn't that piece the reason why it was ineligible for an Oscar nomination? I
Something
think
along
that
those
might be the
lines.
piece. I think that might be the piece that was originally written for another movie.
It might have been, but he then brought, but it's still his work, and he brought it in there.
It's still
I
his
don't
work.
know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying the
I
eligibility is
know,
fair
yeah,
or
no,
not.
it's stupid Oscars.
Yeah.
That's why the
Dumb
InSession
rules.
Film Awards
Yeah.
exist. But I think it's masterful. I think it also has brought upon one of the greatest collaborations of the modern era with him and Paul Thomas Anderson. And even like there's, I mean, there's not much of it, but his couple of tracks that he has in Licorice Pizza are incredible as well there too. So yeah, Greenwood, that score, There Will Be Blood. Howard Shore, Lord of the Rings. It's kind of along the lines of like JD's pick. This is very much my childhood. I mean, how many different themes are in this movie that
A lot.
not only are bombastic and wonderful, but also break my heart. I think of the sequences in Rohan, the sequences with Gollum, the sequences with the Fellowship and Fellowship of the Ring. I think of just the beginning when you see the Lord of the Rings after Cate Blanchett's narration early on. You know what I mean? And it's in then all the stuff with Mordor and dun 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 dun. You know what I mean? And it's truly just like, honestly, Jake picked the perfect word. It's epic storytelling. So you need to have an epic score to go with it. But then there's the subtleties of the music with the hobbits and Frodo and Sam and their journey as well. The when Legolas and Aragorn and Gimli, when they are racing after on their own missions and everything. But then there's also the meditative and almost religious and just him and the like, almost like it's like hymns or these it's almost ghostly quality of the elves as they're passing on and everything there too. There's just so much. It's so rich with so many different moments of score that Howard Shore's music is just, it's so essential to Lord of the Rings. And so that's why it's got to be there. It's almost like Howard Shore kind of looking at why Williams's original trilogy for Star Wars is so effective with Lucas, and in bringing so many different ways of identifying characters, where they're from, with a piece of music. I think that that's truly fascinating. And
Sure. Yeah, good point.
and so there's that. Maurice Jarre, I mean, Lawrence of Arabia, I mean, that movie, one of the most beautiful movies of all time. But if you talk about epic, that score goes along with it. It's this man's journey through war and through finding himself. Obviously, it's a, you know, Jay and I talked about when we talked about Lean and in that series. And, you know, I got to say, you know, that there's moments I think of real subtlety here, but when it builds up and it's got those big battle sequences and everything, it's, and even like the stuff on the train, though it kicks off the second part, I think is just incredible work. And truly like one of those that I think is like, it's almost like a template for epic scores and epic filmmaking, because Lawrence of Arabia is like a movie that
Sure.
every, you know, every director wants to make a Lawrence of Arabia. There's no question about it. They want to make their epic of their time. And then lastly, this little known guy named John Williams, making this I think arguably his best score, his most, right up there, you know, yes, Star Wars stuff, I get that, but you know, when Jay talked about whistling down the street, you know what I mean? Like, and you know exactly who it is. You don't have to think, oh, is that the Rebels?
You have to walk to that. Like that is like
Yeah.
that is what's the word I'm looking for? Like that is just such a such a strut. Like that song is a literal strut.
Like, and you instantly know who it is.
Yeah.
It's Indiana Jones. It's the greatest hero in film history.
Great.
And
he survived a
I'd say
nuclear
it's tied
blast.
with like seven other John Williams themes as the greatest theme of all time.
It is. But then also too, I mean, like, I think Raiders of the Lost Ark is Steven Spielberg's best film. I think it's John Williams is easily one of his best scores, if not his best score. I think then Indy's theme is, I mean, that's the thing about, like, you know, Star Wars is like there's so many different Star Wars themes that are so great, but this one's so unique to Indy himself. But then you think about, you know, the traveling sequences, the different action sequences that are in this film, they're all led by this score. They're all propelled by Williams pushing it along with Spielberg, and they are such close collaborators. They really are. Spielberg trusts him to get his movie to the finish line every single time. And you know, this is still early in their time working together, but man, do they absolutely nail it. They create an epic, you know, thing that's I love what Harrison Ford, when they were doing, I think the AFI tribute to John Williams, and he walked out to the Indiana Jones score and he goes, that damn music's been following me around for 40 years. You know, it follows me when I go to when I go down the street. It follows me when I come to awards like this. I even had somebody playing that music right as they were about to put me under for my colonoscopy. You know what I mean? Like that music is tied to Ford and Williams and Spielberg, who I would argue more than Lucas in Star Wars, Spielberg is John Williams's ultimate muse. And so if there is a William, and I will make this argument now down the road, if there is a Williams score to win, it must come from a Steven Spielberg movie. That's what I truly believe, because of the fact that I think one of the greatest directors of all time. I'm just saying, one of the greatest directors of all time. His movies don't nearly work without one of the greatest composers of all time. And that the 50-year relationship that they've had, and the how many films? Like, what is it?
Crazy.
30 films or something like that. It's insane.
20, 25.
It's 25 plus. You know what I mean? So
lots of stuff. Lots
so there you
of
go.
movies.
Lot of epic
movies
ideas.
are good. Movies are good.
Movies.